You're listening to Media History Podcast.
where stories echo beyond the headlines.
Okay, imagine this. A magazine born just before the Great Depression really takes hold. But instead of folding, it launches right into it.
Yeah.
It doesn't just survive, it actually thrives.
Mm-hmm.
Famously left half its pilot issue blank.
Aha.
Yet goes on to coin revolutionary business terms, rank the world's most powerful companies. I mean, how did a publication like that become such a titan of business journalism?
It's quite a story, isn't it?
Welcome to Media History Podcast. Today, we're really getting into the fascinating history of Fortune magazine. It's a publication that, well, it hasn't just mirrored the business world, it's actively shaped it for decades.
Exactly. And our mission here in this Media History Podcast is to really unpack Fortune's extraordinary story. We want to trace its path right from those audacious beginnings, those empty pages you mentioned,
Right.
through all the sort of tumult and the incredible innovation, right up to its modern-day digital-first strategy. We're looking at the visionaries, the breakthroughs, and, the surprising challenges that defined its journey.
And we've gathered some great insights for you. We've looked at historical accounts, including a really rich piece from Reporterzy.info. We've sifted through it all to bring you the most compelling bits from Fortune's, well, storied past.
So where do we start? The founders.
Let's do that. Our story really kicks off with a formidable partnership. Henry Luce and Britton Haddon.
Mm-hmm.
These two weren't just friends. They were like intellectual companions from their days at Hotchkiss School.
Mm-hmm.
And that bond deepened at Yale University, where they both wrote for the Yale Daily News, really honing their journalistic skills.
That's right. And their ambition was clear from the start, wasn't it? They co-founded Time Inc., launched Time magazine back in 1923.
It was huge.
Huge, the nation's first popular weekly. But then a really pivotal and tragic moment came in February 1929. Britton Haddon died suddenly. He was only 31.
Wow.
Yeah. And this left Luce as the sole owner within about a year. And apparently this profoundly fueled his drive to expand the company with new titles. Fortune was the very first one.
And this is where Luce's maybe strategic brilliance really comes through, especially looking back. September 1929, just weeks before the stock market crash.
Incredible timing.
Right. Luce sends out this sample issue, Fortune, Volume 1, Number 1, to potential advertisers. And get this, 55 pages, but half of them deliberately left empty.
Yeah. It's such a bold move. More than bold, really. It was psychological, wasn't it?
Totally.
He wasn't just selling ad space. He was selling this vision of, future prosperity
Right.
and aspiration. And that somehow resonated with his elite audience, even right on the brink of economic disaster.
He was betting on their resilience, maybe.
I think so. And their need for a platform that reflected their own ambition. His message to advertisers was pretty audacious. He wanted an ideal superclass magazine.
Superclass.
Yeah, extraordinarily beautiful, richly illustrated and priced, high enough that only wealthy and enthusiastic readers will jump over the barrier.
Setting the bar high from day one. And the target audience wasn't just business people, right? It was very specific.
Absolutely meticulous. Luce saw Fortune as essential for industrialists, producers of exclusive goods, anyone dealing with, large sums of money.
The big players.
Exactly. The goal was explicit. Reflect industrial life in ink, paper, word, and image, just as the finest skyscraper reflects it in stone, steel, and architectural design.
Wow, that's quite a mission statement.
It is, but also, crucially, it aimed to critically and evaluatively write the history of 20th century industry, to present corporations without ideological boundaries. And despite the crash happening just weeks later, the first actual issue still debuted in February 1930, only a month late, which is pretty remarkable, really, shows that determination.
And luxury and artistry from day one. That feels like an understatement when you hear about the production.
Oh, completely. Unparalleled quality. We're talking 184 brilliantly colorful pages, top-tier cream paper.
Cream paper, no less.
And apparently only one printing house in the whole country, Osborne Chromatic Gravure Company in New Jersey, could actually meet their quality standards.
Wow. So that price tag, $1 an issue or $10 a year, when the New York Times was 10 cents.
Huge difference.
It wasn't just a price. It was like a velvet roach, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. It immediately positioned Fortune as this exclusive, aspirational thing.
Yeah.
And the artistic mastery was just as central. Thomas Maitland Cleveland designed that iconic first cover, The Wheel of Fortune.
Right. I've seen that.
And subsequent covers were literally works of art. renowned painters, illustrators, Ben Shahn, Arthur Lidov, Antonio Petruccelli. He did 25 covers between 33 and 45 alone.
But Luce knew it wasn't just about looking good, right?
Yeah.
He invested heavily in the writing, too.
Oh, definitely. Young literary talents like Archibald MacLeish, Alfred Cousin, John Kenneth Galbraith. Their writing was described as brazen, irreverent, and critical.
Strong words.
Yeah. And the photography had to match. Staff photographer Walker Evans, Margaret Burke White, Peter Stackpole, top names. It promised, as they said, something to read and something to rest your eyes on.
And it wasn't just like dry financial reports, was it?
Not at all. Early on, they covered aircraft, cars, even philosophical questions like whether saving time extends life.
Really?
Yeah. Incredible bird's-eye view photos by Captain Alfred Buckham, the bicycle craze, even cultural stuff like painting exhibitions, new books, music releases.
So it was more than just a business mag. It was kind of a cultural artifact for the elite.
Absolutely. Blending serious economic analysis with this high-level artistic expression, truly reflecting the aspirations of its, well, very sophisticated readers.
Okay, so as the magazine finds its feet, the editorial side evolves too. Luce wrote articles, sure, but he wasn't initially the editor-in-chief.
Right. Parker Lloyd-Smith was first, then Ralph Ingersoll took over in 1932. And Ingersoll came from The New Yorker, which brought, a certain prestige
Definitely.
and a real commitment to professional writing. He famously preferred literary names like Archibald MacLeish again and James A.J.
And under this leadership, the magazine started getting more political.
It did. From 32 onwards, Fortune began covering politics more directly. Luce himself tackled what he called thankless topics.
Such as?
Well, he notably criticized FDR's New Deal, also Herbert Hoover. But importantly, the magazine also covered, impartially, communist Russia and fascist Italy.
So presenting different systems.
Exactly. It wasn't about taking sides editorially in those pieces, more about reflecting the complex global economic and political landscape for its readers, giving them the full picture.
And then came a really big moment, investigatively speaking, 1934.
Ah, yes, Eric Hodgins. A chemist turned journalist, interestingly.
Right. He published Arms in the Men.
Yeah, a really searing piece on the European arms industry, the weapons trade. It brought the magazine international fame, really put it on the map for that kind of work.
It showed they weren't afraid of tough subjects.
Not at all. Things like anti-Semitism, the whole communism versus capitalism debate, even the dignity of labor, they were willing to go there.
But this raises that tricky question of editorial independence, especially with a founder like Luce.
He was a very strong supporter of capitalism, and reports say he often interfered, imposed his views, pressured journalists.
Created tension, I imagine.
Definitely led to tension. And in 1937, he presented his Respectus Conditions, which were essentially strict mandates reinforcing his ideology and editorial control.
And the result?
Several journalists left, understandably. Luce then named himself editor-in-chief of all-time Inc. titles. And he stayed in that role until he retired in 1964.
So that internal friction was real. Even with high journalistic standards, Luce's shadow loomed large. How did they navigate that, especially as things shifted rightwards under the next managing editor, Russell Davenport? Luce also launched Life around then, right? Focusing on photojournalism.
Yeah, Life launched, which definitely drew some of his focus, maybe influenced Fortune's visual style down the line too, but it was a continuous balancing act at Fortune. And alongside these editorial shifts, the magazine was expanding its influence in other ways.
Like the polling.
Exactly. 1935, they partnered with the pioneer pollster Elmo Roper for the Fortune survey. And it famously and accurately predicted FDR's win in 36.
That must have caused a stir.
Huge credibility boost. Then in 1939, they launched the Business Roundtable column. This directly linked business with politics, government actions. Journalists called it a gem.
It's still going today.
Still going. A vital forum for high-profile business leaders to discuss the economy and policy. It really shapes discourse.
Then, of course, the war years.
Yeah.
World War II must have completely changed the focus.
Absolutely. From the very first months, Fortune was right there. Headlines like, War and Peace. Business is better than bombs in July 40.
Wow.
U.S. defense. More debt, higher taxes in November 40. Covering global issues, too. Japan, threat in East Asia, the paradox of oil and war. Hitler has plenty, the Allies have none.
Pretty direct stuff.
Very direct. But what's also notable is how they explored the sort of indirect impacts. Like in February 43, covering women taking on vital roles in ammunition production. The article was, "The margin now is women's strength. 3 million women needed."
Highlighting social shifts.
They even featured Walt Disney's studio producing educational and propaganda films. Articles like, "Walt Disney, the great teacher. His films were revolutionary in August 43.
That's fascinating. Disney as a teacher.
Yeah. And new sections popped up. Business at War, London Cable, Trials and Errors, constantly adapting. Then, after the war, under Ralph D. Delpain Jr., Luce gave Fortune a new, very specific mission.
Which was?
The active defense of the free enterprise system. So, covering new subjects like the Cold War, space exploration, all through that lens, it shows that incredible adaptability again.
Moving into the 50s, Fortune kept innovating. And not just reporting, but actually coining terms we still use.
Right. William Hawley White coined business sociology. He was analyzing the economy's impact on white-collar workers. And Daniel Bell introduced the huge concept of post-industrial society.
These are fundamental ideas.
Absolutely. Fortune wasn't just reporting on the business world, it was literally providing the vocabulary to understand shifts in society and the economy. But maybe the most impactful innovation of all.
Let me guess. The 500.
The Fortune 500, exactly. 1955, under editor Edgar Smith, they published the first ranking of the largest corporations. Initially, it was just mining and energy.
But it caught on.
Massively. The idea quickly expanded to include all sorts of industries, still compiled every year, ranking companies by total revenue from public data.
And that just spawned more rankings, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. The Fortune 50, 1000, the Global 500 in 1990, China 500 in 96, then things like 100 best companies to work for, 40 under 40, even specialized lists like best workplaces for millennials. It really defined how we measure corporate power and workplace culture.
Yet, for all its success and influence, there was criticism too, right? Particularly about who was actually working at Fortune.
Yes, that's a really important point. Andrew L. Yarrow noted that in the 1950s, Fortune had no black journalists, and women could not rise above the role of researchers until the 1960s.
So a real lack of diversity internally.
A significant lack. It highlights a stark contrast between its often groundbreaking external reporting and its internal structure, which, well, reflected the societal biases of the time.
How did things change on that front? And technologically?
Well, design-wise, covers started moving away from those elaborate artworks towards more photographs in the late 50s. A huge technological milestone was Walter Allner introducing the first computer graphics cover in 1965.
65. That's early for computer graphics on a magazine cover.
It really was. Marked a new era of computerization, as they put it. Then, after Henry Luce died in 67, his son, Henry III, took over.
Luce III.
Right. And he led some new editorial directions, more coverage of international economics, social issues, especially American families, unemployment, and youth culture. And women in the newsroom started pushing for these discussions too, and for broader representation.
And this is where we get figures like Carol Loomis.
An absolute trailblazer. Started as a researcher in 53, which was the ceiling for women then.
Right.
But she broke through, became a writer in 61. And her 1966 article, The Jones Nobody Keeps Up With, not only profiled a key investor, but featured the first recorded use of the term hedge fund.
Wow. She coined hedge fund, or at least first recorded use in print.
First recorded use, yeah. It just entered the language after that. Think about the impact of that term alone.
Incredible. Fortune wasn't just reporting. It was literally shaping the financial lexicon.
Exactly. Her story is amazing. Numerous awards, worked there for 60 years.
50 years.
Yeah. Endured discrimination, but really paved the way for other women, like Julie Connolly, who coined trophy wife in Fortune in 1989.
Another term that stuck.
Definitely. And the magazine itself kept adapting its format. Under Robert Lubar, in January 78, it went from monthly to bi-weekly.
Big change. Risky?
Met with skepticism, apparently, but it worked. Even competitors like Forbes liked it. It meant shorter articles, redesigned pages, and they added a dialogue section for opposing viewpoints.
Interesting. Then another shift later?
Yeah. 2009, they shifted to publishing every 3 weeks. Another adaptation to reading habits, the market.
And the corporate structure was changing too, right? Time Inc. merging with Warner?
Right. 1990. Created Time Warner. That expanded Fortune's capabilities massively. They integrated diagrams, charts, graphics even more. Even had a TV show for a bit, Fortune Week on CNBC in 93, 94.
Trying out different platforms early on.
Yeah, showing that recognition of multi-platform content. And this whole period was about diversifying its media presence and going global.
Global editions.
Fortune China edition in 96, Europe, Asia editions followed. And crucially, the digital side. The domain fortune.com was registered way back in 1994.
94 is very early.
Very early. First mention on a cover was 98. Later, it integrated with cnnmoney.com for a while, but then launched its own independent website in 2014, really embracing that digital-first strategy, essential for survival, really.
Which brings us closer to today. Despite all the challenges print media faces,
And they are significant.
Fortune keeps innovating. New ownership in 2018.
Yeah. Acquired by Thai billionaire Chachval Giaravanan, became Fortune Media Group Holdings. Then in 2021, Alison Chantel became the youngest ever editor-in-chief and chief content officer.
Youngest ever. And making an impact.
Apparently so. Significantly grew Fortune.com's readership, launched new rankings like the Fortune Crypto 40 in 2023, keeping things current.
And women in leadership now.
Very much so. CEO Anastasia Nurkotska, many others in top positions. It kind of embodies that current mission to change the world by improving business. It's a testament to evolution, adaptation, redefining leadership.
So when you look back from that audacious launch in the Depression, those blank pages, through wars, social commentary, coining terms, creating iconic rankings, Fortune's journey is just this powerful story of adaptation, innovation, or really defining how we even talk about business.
It really is. And it leaves us with a question, doesn't it, for you, our listener? As media keeps shifting so fast towards digital and AI starts reshaping how we get information, what qualities of Fortune will endure? You know, that commitment to rigorous journalism, the blend of deep analysis with accessibility, that knack for identifying and ranking what matters. What parts of that will still be essential for leaders, for curious minds in the decades ahead? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this Media History podcast on the incredible, complex story of Fortune magazine. Join us for another fascinating Media History podcast coming soon.